The inner circle goes after Creed Financial. But when you've got a psychopath on your crew, things are bound to get messy. Meanwhile, Reid's condition worsens, Blink's loyalties are questioned, and Jace steps up the Purifier ladder. It's The Gifted, Season 2, Episode 7. No Mercy. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of The Gifted. So yes, of course, spoilers are a coming. But before we get started on our review proper, I do want to take just a moment and give a fond farewell to X-Men co-creator and, let's face it, the face of Marvel, Mr. Stan Lee, who passed away yesterday at the age of 95. Very difficult to pin down just how big of an influence, I think, on all of us Stan Lee has been. But I just, Marvel has had its ups and downs over the years, long before we got into our big MCU revitalization in the past 10 years. And through that all, Stan Lee has been the face, the voice. He has pushed since the 70s and the Incredible Hulk series and the attempts at a live-action Spider-Man and Thor, which was not that good back then, really has pushed to keep Marvel, the characters, the idea, the heroic stories with the population, whether it be through live action, through animation, the X-Men series, which so many people are familiar with from the 90s, up until finally it did catch on once the technology was there in order to really support a live action view of these amazing stories, amazing characters, amazing effects and abilities that they can bring to the world with, well, let's say it, with X-Men. Back in the early 2000s, first off. Just really from seeing all the lows to being able to witness and be a part of seeing his ideas, his properties become really one of the largest entertainment franchises in the world, I think was just an amazing thing for Stan to be able to get to experience. So much love, so many fans, and he was always so gracious with his fans. It's a loss. It's a loss that Stan is no longer with us, but his legacy will live on for years and years to come. And the MCU apparently has filmed a few more cameos, so it will be bittersweet, but we will see a little bit more of Stan Lee in some of the MCU films to come. So something to look forward to, a bit bittersweet, but Excelsior, Stan. Thank you for everything that you have given us. So, all right, true believers, let's get back into it. Our episode proper this week. A lot of stuff happening. A lot of story moving forward. Some great action, some wonderful moments, and a little bit of scariness thrown in there just to keep things interesting. So, yeah, a lot of stuff happening this week. Really good episode. This is what I like about The Gifted when things are moving forward, because not only did we have our action sequences, but we had some just cool moments. We had some great character work. I enjoyed looking into the little bit of history of Reva, which, her introduction, taking out the rest of the inner circle, placing herself on top and pulling in Esme and starting up her plans, has seemed rather diabolical from the beginning. And we get a little bit of a different side from Reva this week, which I appreciated seeing. We get a little glimpse into her history, how she was not so anti-human. Well, we get to see why her pro-mutant stance really developed the way that it did. That she wasn't so wanting people to work together when she was younger, but seeing a friend killed by prejudiced people while she was just trying to defend herself. Her friend actually defending her in that moment before getting stabbed and killed. You really see how, again, we've hit it several times. Hate being something that is learned, or again, and let me step aside here for a moment because I really don't want to get into the hate idea with Riva. In fact, what we find out here is really Riva is less anti-human than really more pro-mutant. And I think that that's an important point of view. We've had some discussions in the comment section about, you know, is the Inner Circle evil? You know, I'm talking about them as the evil mutants. And in this sense, not really so much. Maybe the people that they work with, that can kind of classify things, but it keeps everything, the world is more of a gray area. And I think that's sort of the great thing that these stories can delve into and talk about. But we get to see a little spectrum of sort of the Inner Circle here. And I'll put Riva as, again, not anti-human, pro-mutant, which is different. And I think Esme and I think you know, Lauren is certainly falling into into that realm, you know, maybe on a little bit of a sliding scale, which is different than, say, our psychopath Rebecca, who may be pro-mutant, but definitely anti-human. And she's established this kind of throughout this. We can understand her being hurt from her hospital stay. Only a year, though. Not that that's a short period of time, but not as long as I thought it was. But the little discussion with Reid when they were in, with Andy, sorry, when they were in Creed Financial. I'm going to be messing up Creed and Reid a few times. Forgive me for that. When she was already kind of lashing out as, what are we doing with the humans? Why are we just going to leave them up there? Aren't we going to do anything? And Andy shooting out, hey, my mom is human. And Rebecca's response to that is, yeah, so was my mom. Was. Though that's different because, again, remember, Rebecca killed her parents. And obviously as things sort of play out in the rest of the episode, we can see she is not just a pro-mutant person. She hates humans. And I think that's where we get into the really dark side of what the Inner Circle may not stand for, but allows. And that's what means them as an organization to be a little bit more on the evil side. But this week, going after Creed Financial, who has built their empire off the backs of mutants. And this is where you can see where Riva is really lashing out at them, picking them as a target, not just so much of them being, you know, a place to take money from, but the fact that they have profited off of mutants, turning away, taking over houses, all of that, which sort of was implied in that beginning little section. Using Quinn for it, and again, this is where we get more of the not anti-human. Looks like Riva actually liked Quinn. That's what she said. You know, if it was just a lie, that would have made all of this easier. And I think that's why Rebecca's whole actions at the end there really impact her. I mean, for multiple reasons, and I'll get into that shortly. But really, just, you know, it was nice to see that kind of softer side of Riva. There is, you know, she does have some caring, some emotion. She could care for humans. She, you know, they might have potentially been an item at some point. Maybe. I mean, the potentiality was there. She obviously liked him and he liked her. And she was making the promise, I want you to go back to your boys. Though willing to threaten their lives in order to get what she wants. So, you know, sort of a gray area in her okay with human stance there. But yeah, so using poor Quinn, manipulating him, doing the whole love suck-in to get him to do what she wants, which is basically go in, put in the virus in order to take out the anti-mutant detectors, or the mutant detectors, so that the Inner Circle crew could go into the bank without setting off all of the alarms. And yeah, that was a nice sequence. You know it, because it is. It's our Scene of the Week for this week. And that is basically that whole opening sequence. Once the music kicks on, that whole bit was just beautifully done. Not always a plus with music. The music, you know, sometimes the music works, sometimes it doesn't. This one, I think the tone, the beat, everything was great. Really set the mood nicely. We get Quinn going in, putting in the virus. Then we've got the whole crew walking in. The remaining Cuckoo Sisters controlling the guards, bringing them in with them. Lorna blowing out all of the electronics and then stopping the bullets, pulling the guns in on there. I mean, it was just Riva using her power very effectively at stunning everybody that was in the office. I mean, that whole bit was just beautifully done, beautifully shot. Everyone's spacing was nice. They all got their cool little heroic poses and spacing and moments right there. It was just, that's how stuff is done. That was just beautiful. The rest of that sequence, though, pretty straightforward. Not really a whole lot to extra dive in. There was, again, some good communication between Andy and Rebecca. I liked that in the safe. The safe is adamantium. Damn, that's got to be an expensive safe. Oh, man. It's a lot of adamantium. But, you know, Rebecca having her difficulties in there, and she's expressed from the beginning a little bit of doubts, concerns. She didn't want to be disappointing everyone. And I liked how Andy, again, is, you know, we can understand that he is there. He wants to be part. He wants to be supportive. And he's playing that role perfectly. I loved also him using the lessons that he was getting in order to focus his powers and throwing that advice her way. All that anger, all that emotion, all that stuff, you need to channel it. You need to focus it. Take all of that and use that. I thought was sort of a beautiful way of continuing kind of his training is now he's watching over her and passing on those training ideas onto her. I thought that was really nice. Now, whether or not that focusing and pulling up the anger and such may have played into Rebecca's final little move, not sure. I think she was already pretty much in the anti-human camp from the very beginning there. But we've got, we got Quinn going down, releasing all of the money, which was very cool. I loved seeing Sage's eyes doing the whole bit while she was working on the computer. I haven't really seen that kind of manifestation on Sage's powers. I don't think so. But so that was just kind of a cool little moment. And even Esme there with the kid, all smiling and watching over stuff. I mean, that was, again, sweet, cool little moments here. The fact that they have taken pretty much all of the money from the bank. It's going to hurt people, businesses. Yeah, well, what about the mutants that hurt in order to get the money? Again, nice back and forth battling of philosophies. I thought was really good. And then, of course, we have another video. The two of the triplets getting the bank manager, I believe, there in order to admit all of the crimes and things that were done. Very much just like in the hospital stuff. Nicely done. But the end. That final little bit. Look, again, I got to give it up that Riva's plan was to keep her promise. To let Quinn go home. To leave the humans safe, just locked up. And from a public relations standpoint, is smart. Again, not anti-human, pro-mutant. And being pro-mutant, supportive. You know, the money is here to finance a world, a place where mutants can be themselves. This is all great. But if you hurt people, then that's going to get the public against you. And I think Riva understands this. And even, again, the Cuckoos, I think, understand this. Lorna certainly for sure is not in the killing human camp. But we've got Rebecca, who's psychotic. Really is. And not just lashing out. She takes joy in this. That smile on her face afterwards, that's the sign right there. That's what you don't want on your crew, because you can't control them. They're going to do whatever they want. Certainly you shouldn't turn your back on a psychopath and say, come on, we gotta go, when she's already advocating taking people out. So, yeah, a whole room full of workers are all inside out now. Very messy, very nasty. And yes, that bothers Riva because she liked Quinn. They're not going to be an item anymore, but she liked him, wanted to keep the promise. But I think, again, from a larger standpoint, this isn't going to help their cause because this is going to turn people even more against them. Certainly something that Benedict Ryan is going to grasp onto. Yes, Benedict Ryan. Nice little comic character popping back up. Always associated with the Purifiers. And here, the big backer that Ted was introducing Jace into in this episode. Not really a whole lot going on this section. Again, we're just sort of moving Jace's storyline forward. I do appreciate his reticence in order to go and kind of throw his old company, Sentinel Services and such, under the bus. Because again, this is still showing how Jace is trying to be an honorable person. How his motivations, he wants justice. He doesn't want to necessarily squash mutants. I think that's really the big difference we have between the Purifiers and Jace. Though, obviously, as time, Jace is getting sucked further and further into this world, and how long is that gray area going to maintain? How long until he entirely switches over? Because he's getting the great temptation, and Ted, our little cop buddy, is not very helpful. Well, I mean, helpful for the Purifiers, not for Jace's consciousness. But really pushing, especially bringing up the wife, the daughter. They don't respect you. They don't appreciate you. Well, I mean, the daughter's dead, of course. But the wife doesn't appreciate it. They don't know what you're doing. This is your one chance at doing it. Again, pushing all of Jace's buttons very, very appropriately. And which is what gets him eventually to go ahead and agree to Benedict's proposal. Which is basically, Benedict Ryan is he's a TV personality. He's got his own show. He is definitely pro-human, and now, especially hearing about the whole Creed financial situation, this is going to put him very front and center, with Jace being the new person, the individual who tried to go within the system and now has to strike out on his own to fight the good fight for humanity. And that's exactly where Benedict is going to put him, not necessarily where Jace wants to be. But he is going to be the face of your ordinary man that stands up against the mutants. And so while you have a mutant uprising, I think here we have the attempts to begin a human uprising, a human response. Meanwhile, at the mutant underground, a couple of things going on. Reid's condition worsening. A lot of concern about finding a place for him to be that he's not going to completely destroy. And yeah, how do you sleep in a bed when your arms can destroy anything that they touch? And so far, it just seems to be located just in his arms. We're not seeing clothing and feet and stuff like that. He's holding that away. So it is just in his arms, but he's not looking too good either. There's definitely pain involved. But I think even physically, Reid looks like he's crashing. He's pale. He doesn't look like he's slept at all. There's definitely pain involved. The real question that I have with this is Reid. One of the main concerns, of course, was being brought up the episode is, will he ever be able to touch his family anymore? Can he hug his wife? Can he hug his daughter without, risking their lives? So definitely when we had that final little bit with Kate grabbing his hands as the symptom seems to have settled for the moment, allowing that human touch, I think very reassuring, very comforting for obvious reasons. But I am curious about, does he only hurt inanimate objects? What about biologicals? Would he actually hurt someone holding his hands? Or is, a living, breathing tissue, is that not going to be affected by him? We haven't really dived into this. It's just been inanimate objects. And they haven't really even dived into his eating and food. And I'm assuming with a fork and stuff, that would crush and cave and things like that. But I am curious, how do you test that? Throw a piece of meat on him? Honestly, that might be the best thing. At least that would allow for touch. That would allow something. And perhaps even some sort of gloves, covering to keep him from damaging things until he can sort of get his powers under control. I don't know. I'm really curious where they're going to go with this. We do seem to be queuing in on Madeline the ex-assistant for the father there, who has now been discovered, now heading up her own genetics research. So could be heading down in that direction. Is she going to get some answers? Is they going to find a way to quell or control Reid's powers, suppress it, or is this going to open up maybe some new doors, new directions? What is Madeline researching? Who is she? What is her character going after? What does she want? I think can open up some nice possibilities going forward. But at the very least now, like I said, is Reid going to be able to control his powers, do biologicals? Can he affect those just like regular inanimate objects? I think it's going to be an interesting direction to kind of find out, and can certainly make a big difference in his interaction with the rest of his family. Which, again, I like all the support. Kate definitely there. I love Lauren and Reid's little moment there of Lauren like, I'm going to protect you, and Reid like, I'm supposed to be protecting you. But no, this is who we are. We can no longer hide who we are. Again, embracing the fact that they're mutants and going with that, I think is a good move for that family. And Blink. Her loyalties are a little questioned in this episode. Now, and I don't know. I don't think it's entirely fair. I get the concern that Marcos was expressing. It's like, hey, now you're all about the Morlocks and Urg and everything, and let's connect. And I can see where John has his hesitancy. But I think Clarice was very correct in the questions in that little scene between John and Clarice. What is our plan? I think I've asked this before in some of the past reviews, and so I appreciate that Clarice is sort of bringing this up. What did I do? I helped him get food. I connected him with some other mutants and so on. Yeah, maybe it's relaying information and doing things behind back. But again, Clarice has a great point. The underground is falling apart. Even John had said that he had reached out within a 100-mile radius to try and get some help for Reid, and all people could talk about was a mutant uprising. To be honest, I'm surprised that he got any response back at all. I thought he was going to be like, nobody's calling me back. It would seem to be the direction that things are going on with this. He has concerned about Atlanta falling apart, not being able to help the underground. But what are they doing? What is their plan past tomorrow? They're not really helping mutants. They're not the same way station that they were before. They're not striking out. They're not. What is the plan? What is the mutant underground doing? I think those are totally legitimate questions to bring up. And of course, Clarice can have that connection with the Morlocks. Urg gave her name. So that's a plus. But the fact that they are providing a home, protection, a place for mutants to go. Not just even just a way station that the mutant underground was, but an actual place to go. Where mutants can be who they are. Obviously very appealing for Blink, for Clarice, being more of the, again, she can pass for a regular human, but definitely has the characteristics pointing her out, ears, eyes, all of that stuff, for being a definite mutant. So I like this. I like this sort of moment. It is bringing up important things, and it's going to really come to a head, I think, coming forward, where we do have the inner circle wanting to build that place for mutants. And how is that going to play into everyone else? I think that's really where loyalties are going to be questioned moving forward here. Is the mutants even the mutant underground, they want a safe place for mutants. What does that mean, though? What does that look like? And we're seeing here is multiple options, multiple views of what that actually looks like. I think the real question is going to be, especially for our waning mutant underground members, is where's it that they want to go? What is their plan? All right, well, I think that pretty much covers everything. Thank you so much for joining me with this review. But before we go, just real quick, want to let you know, this Friday, November 16th, 4 p.m. Pacific, over on the Enchantment of Eternity YouTube channel, there is the Enchantment of Eternity Trivia Challenge Championship. Great competition. Myself versus Don Willie. 2 will enter and 2 will leave, but 1 with bragging rights. Really should be a blast. I think we'll have 3 rounds going, finding out who is the Trivia Challenge Master. And if you join us live, you can compete as well in the chat room. So it should be a blast. Don's a great guy. Mark's got some very interesting trivia questions lined up, so it should be a good time. Anyway, that's 4 p.m. Pacific this Friday over on Enchantment of Eternity. As soon as I get a link, I will throw those down in the section below, and you can link right to it. So that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you enjoyed this review, you can just go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, you know where to put them. Right down in the section below. What'd you guys think of this episode? What was your favorite part? What do you think Madeline is up to in her genetic research area down south? And also, the competing views of a world where mutants can be themselves. Where do you think that's going to lie out? Anyway, throw your thoughts down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe if you're not. Quick and easy 1-button press. You'll catch all of these reviews, and we'll throw up a couple of our latest ones right here, and you can check those out. So, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.